Hello, people of the internet. My name is Pierre-Alexandre, and I am a storyboard artist and graphic novelist. Today I'm going to be taking you on a quick tour of my office slash studio, as well as going over the process of making a comic book or a graphic novel. So saddle up, here we go. So this is my workspace, my office. This is where I do most of my work. I will split my time between comic books, making Sunder currently, and also working in storyboards. So right now I'm in full production mode for Sunder Volume 2, Tome 2. So this is why this drawing table is set up here. Usually it wouldn't necessarily be there, just to save some space. That's pretty much the area that I'm working in at the moment. This is the main space where I'll do most of this storyboarding work for sure, because it's all digital, and where I'll take the rough thumbnails. I'll show you the whole process later, but I'll do the rough thumbnails and I'll just turn them into more penciled versions. Also a second part of my studio, which is kind of the living area, where I spend time with, hi pup, I spend time with my family while we watch TV. So this is where I'll usually end up doing a lot of the line work for Sunder. So I thought I'd start at the start, and this is the pitch package that I sent for Sunder. Pitch package is not necessarily something that's necessary for people to send, but if you're trying to get a publisher to publish your work, then usually that's what you'll require to do. If you're trying to self-publish it yourself, obviously, or go to Webtoon, something like that. Webtoon, I'm not sure. I've never tried it. It's possible that you need a pitch package, maybe not as extensive as this one, but definitely having some kind of package to explain your story is always good. So let's go a bit of an overview on this one. I had a couple of pages that I thought could be interesting covers for it, just to begin with. Really prominent with the main characters is one of the comments that I got when pitching the package the first time, was that the main character needs to be prominent. So that's a really, really good comment. Then you get a bit of a pitch and about the project, a little bit what the bones of the series are going to be, what it entails. I included also a statement of intent, which is basically just a cover letter talking about yourself, your inspirations for the story, what you intend to do with the story, where you want to go with it, to get an idea for the publisher what they're getting themselves into. Then I also included a synopsis for the whole story, because Sunder is a story that's finite. I just wanted to include everything. It's just a broad outlines, but it's still all there. You can, most of the pieces are there, so you can really get an idea of what you're getting yourself into as a publisher. And then after that, I had some character designs as well as character bios, just to give an idea of who the main characters are. There's so many characters in Sunder, but the main ones that will be there for the most part are represented here. And I also had some pages for the book itself, the pages that were mostly finished. There's some of them I added some ink wash towards the end of the process, but a lot of those were actually finished pages that I had spent a lot of time doing beforehand. I think that was very useful. I also added word balloons so that they could read the story, not just look at the visuals, so to really give a good idea of what the story was about, how I was expecting it to go. And as you can see, I had a lot of pages in it, which was granted probably way more than needed. I felt like because the story was so big and expanding in a lot of places, I wanted to have two different uh, parts of the story. The first part was sort of like the introduction to Zeke, a little bit of his environment and how things were going to be going. The second part was a more actiony, showcasing the main monster of Volume 1. I thought that was also kind of important to kind of give an idea of the vibe of what the story was, where the two intentions were. And one is very character driven. The other one also has action and fantasy parts in it. So to me, that I felt that was very important. You most likely will not need to have that many. I think usually publishers will ask for maybe 6 to 10 pages finished. I would suggest if you're getting it in color, I first intended to have it in black and white. So to me, that was finished pages. We decided later on with the publisher to have it in color. But if you're thinking of having it in color, I would probably try and do 1 or 2 pages of color so that they got an idea of what you're looking for, and definitely add the dialogue. I think that really helps a lot. Moving on from the pitch package, which is probably something that you would either have to do before sending the pitch package if you already know where you're going, or if you're just sending out some kind of just a rough idea to the publisher, then you definitely have to flesh out your story. So this was the outline for Volume 1, and it encompasses all 3 chapters of what would end up being Tome 1 of Sunder. It's not a full-on script like you would have nowadays. A lot of the people that write the stories write it script style, kind of like a movie or animation or TV series even. But for me, because I do a lot of things very visually, I tend to write my stories at the same time as I do the thumbnails. So to me, the outline was very important in having a structure for the story, to know where I was going, to remember what the big parts of the story were going to be. So to have the outline is really helpful for that. Then once I'm done with this, I'll go doing thumbnails and kind of refine the beats and the story itself, where I want to go with all of it. I'll show you the thumbnails right after, but that's very much a luxury that you can have if you're doing a creator-owned book. I don't know that working for a company you would actually be able to do that. Sometimes they might actually let you do it and leave a lot of the fleshing out for the artist itself, which personally I think is really fun. It's really great. It allows the artist to be more involved with the story. However, I couldn't tell if that's something that they're allowing you to do or not. But I know for me that the outline is very important, as it is definitely the backbone of where I want to go, but the story gets fleshed out fully in the thumbnail stage. This is the thumbnails that I'll do for Sunder, for any of the stories that I'll write. For storyboards, it's a little bit different. You do it directly on the computer, but it's very much the same in terms of how you get started. So thumbnails is your way to rough out the idea. I have pages and pages of thumbnails for 170 pages worth of book. You have a lot of those. So I've made this little template that is basically on one 8.5 by 11. I've got 4 full pages that I can just thumb. And what's great about it is that you can kind of follow and see where the story goes with that. If the layout of the whole thing works with each other, because you don't want it to be repetitive too much. You don't want it to be confusing as people flip the pages. But that is a great way to kind of figure out where things are going. And from that point, it will then, I'll then scan it into the computer at a very small format like this, make this one page itself, and then refine the drawings to make it sort of like what we call like the penciled stage, so that the less rough version. I'll also sometimes change the panel layouts of it depending on, once I get into it, if I find that it needs a little bit more, if I need to expand it a bit. It happens quite a lot that maybe I'll take this 2-pager and I'll turn it into 3, just because there's not enough telling the story at this point, and I wanted a little bit more meat on the bone, for to have the story fleshed out better. So that'll all happen at this stage, and then after that I'll print it out in blue ink to then finish off the inking process. So this here is 1 page printed out in blue. So this is the process once it's been worked on the computer. I'll print it out in blue like that, and then I'll start inking it. This is like a halfway done page. I'll start inking it with brushes. I just really use actual brushes, ink, and then I'll go on to the ink wash process. Once all the ink lines are done, I'll finish it off with ink wash. So just to get an idea, it goes from this page to this page. So even on this one, there was a little bit of change. If you see, like at the end, most of the panels are the same. But I actually changed the ending, because this one I had actually turned into like 3 pages. So you have the majority of the panels, but then I just added this big one to move the action along to the other page. And once the pages are done, they are scanned into the computer and sent back to the colorist, who will then send it over to the letterer to finish the book. And it's then compiled by the editor, who's going to be sending it to the designer to finish, the book designer, to put it all together in a book format, and then you end up with a finished product. For this book, we decided to go with 2 different versions. One of them is a soft cover version, and the other one is the newly released hardcover version of the book. And you end up with a final physical copy of all this work that's like about a year's worth of work in this really nice package. And if there's anything that I can say in favor of working with a publisher, is the expertise that you get from the talent going around it is definitely a benefit. I don't know that I would have been able to come up with such a beautiful product at the end myself. If you're knowledgeable about this, by all means, but for me, having the publisher working with me on that one was instrumental in making this product looking so good. So that is pretty much the process from A to Z about making a comic from nothing to a final book. So I thought it'd be also interesting to show a little bit of storyboarding, since that is my day job, and that's a lot of what my time is spent, and it's oftentimes related a lot with comic books, although I would say that there are distinct differences between the two. I don't know that there's a lot of it really shown online or anywhere else, so I thought it'd be interesting. So Storyboards, this is one sequence that I did for Sonic Prime. And storyboarding really is different from comic books in the sense that although you do represent a script into visuals, there's a different sense that needs to be addressed in that storyboards is a moving picture, whereas the comic book is very static. You can go back and forth with the comic book, whereas the storyboard is a continuation. You can definitely rewind and rewatch it, but it still remains a moving thing with most of the time a static frame. You can change your angles within the frames, but the frame itself, the panel, remains the same. So you kind of have to learn to work within those restrictions. And it's very important to convey the idea very clearly in storyboard form, because animation is constantly moving. You can't assume that the viewer is necessarily just going to understand everything right off the bat, or that they can even go back and look into it. It's a moving thing. If you're looking at, for example, on watching it on TV, you can't necessarily go back into it and check like, oh wait, did I miss something? You try to have it as clear as possible for a first viewing. So this is Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, which is the main software that everyone uses at this point. There's definitely other ones. Photoshop and Sketchbook are two of the softwares that have been used for a long time. They're just as good. However, the great advantage with Storyboard Pro is that you do have the timeline at the bottom. Here is your panel timeline, and at the bottom you also have a audio track timeline. So if you do have the the character's voices already recorded, you can put that there. That helps you time your animatic, your storyboard, so that it makes it easier for people to understand what you're getting at. It's going to get sent to editing anyways, who's going to change it, but it does give a really good, strong starting foundation for it. And that way you can also guide yourself, timing it in a way that is readable, and that you understand like, oh, okay, I only have like this 2 frames for this drawing, and or this one's going to take a longer time, and so you can tell the story much more efficiently that way. And you can scroll back and forth to see how things are going, if it's moving up properly, if it lines up with your dialogue. See, I'll show you a little bit of that scrubbing. So that's a little bit of how things would be going in that respect. Now, once that is done, you will usually have a rough pass and a clean pass. You can see this is the clean pass, so it's very different from what you would have for comics. Comics are much cleaner than this. This is considered a clean pass final that's good enough to send to animation. You'll never see a storyboard in its final form on TV anyway. So for that matter, as long as it's readable, your ideas are there, that's all that matters. Then you can have it out as a PDF, which is panel per panel, showing everything that's going on. And that way you can just pretty much flip through each panel and see where the action is. It's usually used mostly for the director or supervisor to kind of like just check the work. Quite honestly, most of the time nowadays it's all done. You just look at the screen and revised from there. There's not really much PDF that's used anymore, but it's still really fun to just kind of like flip through panel per panel just to get an idea what it is. And then also you'll end up having a final version, which is an animatic, which I'll show you right here, just a little bit.
Hammers hurt. Whoa!
You are fast.
So as you can tell, this looks, it's starting to look a lot closer to actual animation. We don't put in all the panels, all the poses that the animators do, but you do want to try to put in as many key poses as possible so that the animator knows the intent of the characters, where to go, what's happening with all of that. So that's basically the job of the storyboard. We're not meant to be doing the final product. We are basically the hands of the director to guide animation into what the director is looking for this particular series, TV, feature, whatever it is. So it's very different. Whereas you could say that for comic books, we are the hand of the writer. I find that it's a lot more of a collaboration that happens in comic books, whereas it's two people writing the story. One of them is putting the words in, the other one is putting the images in to make a whole, whereas animation is one, storyboards is one part of many parts that goes into making the animation itself. You don't have an animation that goes on TV without a storyboard. So it is a very important part, but it is much more of a blueprint kind of part as opposed to a final version that you get for comics. So that's it. That's the whole process, my process of making a comic book. Probably much longer than it needs to be, but that's it. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for taking the time, and now you can see why I draw cartoons for a living and I am not a YouTuber.